When an avoidant ex suddenly starts missing the person they once pushed away, it reveals a hidden emotional battle beneath their silence. Let's start by unpacking what it means to be avoidantly attached. Avoidant individuals aren't emotionless robots. They feel deeply, but they struggle to sit with those feelings, especially when intimacy threatens their sense of control. When things get too close, their nervous system sets off alarm bells, and distancing becomes their go-to self-soothing strategy. In relationships, this often looks like pulling away, shutting down, or even ending things abruptly. To the anxious partner, this rejection feels final, devastating, and personal. But for the avoidant, it's not about a lack of feeling. It's about being overwhelmed by emotions they don't know how to handle. The anxious-avoidant dynamic is a classic pattern. The anxious partner seeks reassurance, connection, and validation, often by reaching out, checking in, and trying to bridge the emotional gap. The avoidant partner, in response, retreats, gets irritated, or shuts down. This cycle repeats until one or both partners are exhausted. What's often misunderstood is what happens after the breakup. The anxious partner, heartbroken, may finally decide to go no contact, stopping all attempts to reach out. This is when something subtle but powerful begins to shift for the avoidant. When the anxious partner is no longer available, no texts, no check-ins, no emotional labor, the avoidant is left with something unexpected: space. And in that space, the emotions they were trying to escape began to catch up with them. Regret creeps in, not as a loud confession, but as a slow-growing discomfort. Avoidants aren't wired to process loss in real time. They intellectualize their feelings, pushing emotions aside to maintain control. But those feelings don't disappear. They linger beneath the surface, waiting for a quiet moment to rise. The silence of no contact becomes fertile ground for realization. So why does the avoidant start to miss the anxious partner they once rejected? It's not always about wanting to rekindle the relationship. Often it's about reattaching to a part of themselves they lost in the process of pushing the other person away. When the anxious partner was present, the avoidant could count on their attention, even if they acted like they didn't care. But once that attention is gone, the avoidant realizes how much they relied on it. The validation they once took for granted is now missing, and they start to miss not just the person, but the feeling of mattering to someone. This is the emotional boomerang. The avoidant throws away the connection to protect themselves, but when the dust settles, they realize what they lost wasn't a threat. It was someone who saw them, stayed with them, and tried to love them despite their walls. Anxious partners bring a unique kind of emotional intensity to relationships. They care deeply, notice small changes, remember little things, and check in often. This isn't just neediness, it's attunement, vigilance born from a fear of abandonment, but also a force that creates emotional safety when understood and reciprocated. When an avoidant enters a relationship with an anxious partner, they're initially drawn to the warmth, care, and availability. But as intimacy grows, old wounds are triggered, and the avoidant pulls back. The anxious partner, in response, doubles down, trying harder to bridge the gap. This dynamic can feel smothering to the avoidant, not because they're being harmed, but because they don't know how to receive consistent care without feeling engulfed. After the breakup, especially if the anxious partner goes silent, the avoidant begins to remember what they lost. They recall the small, everyday ways the anxious partner showed up. The morning texts, the thoughtful check-ins, the emotional labor done quietly and without being asked. They start to miss it, not because they've suddenly become secure, but because that kind of emotional investment is rare. Avoidants often grew up in environments where emotions weren't mirrored or validated. When someone finally shows up with a consistent, heartfelt presence, it can feel overwhelming or even suspicious. But once that presence is gone, the void is unmistakable. The avoidant may not have had the tools to nurture the relationship, but they'll notice when the emotional supply dries up, and they'll miss it. Emotional investment from an anxious partner isn't transactional. It's transformative. When love is offered freely, not for control, but out of genuine care, it invites the avoidant into a kind of intimacy that exposes their deepest defenses. The anxious partner, in their pursuit of closeness, mirrors everything the avoidant has been running from. Vulnerability, accountability, emotional transparency. Most avoidants aren't ready to face this mirror, so they reject it. But rejection doesn't erase memory or the body's experience of being seen, held, and understood. That's what they miss. Not just the person, but the emotional world that person created around them. A world where they were allowed to be human, where someone stayed even when they pulled away, where love was persistent, not conditional. Our culture glorifies independence, being self-made, emotionally untouchable, and unbothered. Avoidant individuals internalize this narrative deeply, confusing emotional self-protection with personal strength. This is the paradox. The avoidant, who once craved space and independence, now feels the absence of the very connection they pushed away. It's not about wanting the relationship back. It's about realizing how much they relied on the other person's emotional investment and how empty it feels when that's gone. If you're the anxious partner listening to this, wondering why the person who pushed you away seems to suddenly care, remember, it's not your responsibility to become their emotional clarity. That's their journey. What we run from eventually becomes what we long for, and nothing haunts the avoidant more than the peace they couldn't appreciate when it was still knocking on their door. Your love was never wasted. You showed someone a version of connection they may not have been ready to hold, but that doesn't make it any less valuable. Emotional investment doesn't become less meaningful just because someone couldn't receive it. It becomes part of their story, whether they ever admit it or not. Sometimes what the avoidant misses most isn't you. It's how they felt in your presence. Let that empower you. Giving your heart is never foolish, even if the other person didn't know what to do with it. Healing from a breakup with an avoidant ex is about reclaiming your worth. It's about recognizing that your emotional investment, your care, and your presence are valuable, even if they weren't fully appreciated at the time. It's about understanding that the avoidance journey is their own and your healing is yours. You are not responsible for their emotional clarity or their growth. You are responsible for your own healing, your own self-worth, and your own journey forward. The avoidant may miss you, but that doesn't mean you have to go back. Sometimes the greatest act of love is letting go and letting yourself heal. As we wrap up, remember this: the avoidant may miss the anxious ex they once rejected, but that's not the end of your story. It's the beginning of a new chapter, one where you put yourself first, where you honor your worth, and where you allow yourself to heal and grow. The love you gave was real. The connection you offered was meaningful. And even if the other person couldn't hold it, that doesn't diminish its value. You are worthy of love, of connection, and of peace. With or without them, let their missing you be a reminder of your strength, your resilience, and your capacity to love deeply. And let your healing be the foundation for the life and love you truly deserve. So what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more such content.